Right, Money Miners, it's event day. God, I can't wait. No one will be bloody... We're going to lose 200 odd listens because everyone's going to be on the piss at the event tonight. How bloody exciting. The first Money of Mine event. Plenty more to come. 240 tickets gone.
I'm super excited, mate. I reckon it'll be really fun. I don't know if we're going to be useful at all tomorrow, but I'm really, really excited to...
I'm not coming in tomorrow. I'm just letting you know. So...
Got a special interview up our sleeve as well.
Oh, yes. No, Joe Lowry Part 2 is coming out tomorrow, which we strategically left.
Conveniently
timed. We're going to be hungover as fuck. Can't wait to have a beer with all the Money Miners. Right, today, boys, Boss Energy, we've got the details of their acquisition. You were right, Trav, when you said looking at another in-situ leaching operation.
Yep.
She's in North America.
Yep.
That's it.
Which
Staying
is
in
really
their
interesting.
wheelhouse.
Really, really interesting.
JD, got a bit of news on Rio's Samandu iron ore project,
Yeah, it's
Glencore's aluminium deal.
Couple ones from the big end of town. It's pretty rare that a major comes out with info specific to one project, so I thought it was pretty interesting.
And I am going deep into the operation and more so the history of Newmont's Tanami project. I thought we'd never talk about it because it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. One of those operations. It's a bloody world-class gold underground ore body, and I wanted to do a piece on it.
I know
It was
nothing
not
about it.
requested by anyone. I just want to, if it's interesting to me, boys, it's going to be interesting to the Money Miners.
And it's listed on the ASX now, mate.
Yeah, well, I thought, why not get ahead of the curve? And, you know, the history, it's a great, great story of a founder that hung on and got a payday many decades later.
You've hooked me.
We love those ones.
You've absolutely hooked me.
Good. Right, Trav has taken the reins today. While
I got my
was
training
balls
wheels on.
deep into the bloody history of Tanami.
I said to you, Maddie, do you want me to, to handle sponsorship today? And he goes, mate, I would love that, and I trust you. I'm gonna give you the training wheels and see how you go.
I'm concerned it's going to be so much better than mine that you might have to do it every day.
A real proud father moment.
How are you going to lead it in, Trav?
The effort to payoff ratio is probably lower because I've put in a bit of effort, but I don't think I'm going to have the same ability to captivate the audience as you, Maddie Michael. But I'm excited to do it. So bear with me, guys. This could be a bit of bit disastrous. But I found this clip, right? I didn't even need to look too hard because I found this clip online. I was just stumbled across it. It just came on my feed.
Just a Google search.
It popped up and I was like, fuck it, how good's this? This is hilarious. It was raw footage, unfiltered, like completely unedited of Stewie Brooks himself. You ready?
Omar has decided to film a commercial.
Hello, my name is
Stuart Brooks.
You know me. I am the owner of
Brooks Airways.
Some people have criticized my airline for not having enough legroom, but I'm here to reassure you that there is more than enough.
So fellas, there you have it. So Brooks Airways, mate. Like next time I'm flying, anywhere, I just want to make sure I'm going to get enough legroom. And you know where you're going to get enough legroom?
Brooks Airways.
Brooks Airways. Stuart Brooks himself just said it.
I'll see you cut off the end bit of that video that might have got us legally in
We
trouble.
have to have future content for future dates. But Stewie Brooks is looking out for everyone, and he makes sure there is plenty of leg room for everyone. He's all over it. I'm really impressed.
On the plane and in the terminal, boys.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Beautiful leather lined seats. I think they even recline.
You want leg room when you're reading the in-flight magazine.
I was going to say, great in-flight entertainment there as well. We'll let the Money Miners hold on for that one. When they buy a ticket, they'll see what's in store.
It's Stewie Brooks, mate. If you need anyone to do the safety video for the pre-flight safety video, we're offering our services.
We 100%
JD
will.
Maddie,
will love to do that.
Maddie, you are itching to be a TV star. I can see you on Sunrise one day.
There's more.
Well, what do we got?
There's so much legroom, maybe too much. No?
So,
If anyone wants to watch that video, you'll see why we had to trim bits out of it online.
So
Mate,
good on you, Stewie. Too much legroom if you fly Brooks Airways.
Too much.
If you are organising flights for your mining company or whoever, wherever in Western Australia in particular, and you're not using Brooks, well, you probably don't have enough legroom.
and the new force in FIFO travel, Brooks Airways. Love your work, Stewie Brooks. What else we got, Trav?
Well, I couldn't stop just there, mate. I had to have a good think about it. And I've got a bit of a hypothetical problem or a dilemma that I want to know if you guys can think of a solution to, right? So imagine this, right? Imagine what a headache it would be to have projects across multiple states and territories.
Oh, I'm already sweating thinking about it.
Pain in the ass. Seriously, like each state and territory has different legislation, different government policies, and you have to comply with that crap. Otherwise, you risk losing your bloody tenure, mate. And what would look worse than losing your tenure? The realities, I think, of running a mining exploration or development company is you want to keep it lean. We talk about this stuff all the time.
Shareholders like lean. Shareholders like you keeping your tenure.
Those two things.
Golden rules.
They're an absolute must. And if you want to keep it lean, like it's shareholder money you're spending on this stuff. And if you aren't frugal, you torch capital. And if you torch capital, we will shame you on the show publicly for doing just that. So imagine this scenario. You're running a mining exploration company. You're conscious of not wanting to be shamed publicly on Money of Mine podcast for stupidly torching shareholder money. So you know you can't hire your own whole internal team to sort out all of your mining compliance requirements.
We'll be straight onto that. We'll be like, that's just a bloody waste of money.
And to add salt to the wounds, you've actually got projects in multiple states and territories. What a bloody piss around.
Oh.
Well, fellas, I happen to know the perfect solution for this problem. And it's a brilliant team over at MMTS, McMahon Mining Title Services.
Oh, because I'll tell you what, that just talk about a holistic solution to all those issues in one building.
A holistic solution and a wholesome team. You've got led by the very impressive Eva, Helen, and Shannon. They'll sort out this headache for you. I thought of an analogy because I'm inspired by your analogies, Matty. Consider MMTS like taking a Panadol when you're hungover. Even better, like drinking a Hydrolyte before you go to sleep to avoid the headache. It's the preventative measure you need to make all the title stuff sorted. They are the Hydrolyte of mining title and compliance management.
I'd take it to one extra level. I reckon they're up at like sort of Panadine Fort, Oxycontin level. Like it fixes it that much, like next level than Panadol.
that is a remedy. This is preventative, mate. You get MMTS and you don't even need the Panadol. You don't even need the Panadine Fort.
This is like
there's no problem to speak of.
There's no problem.
It's gone.
It's just they stopped it before it started. That's the best way to fix a headache is not get one.
So let me sum it up. So you're saying if you've got tenements in multiple states and you want favourable coverage on Money of Mine, you probably should go to Eva at MMTS and engage their services. That is going to give you the best chance of your mining company thriving, and you got a better chance of getting favourable coverage because they won't let all that shit happen.
It's 100% true. We'd never promise favourable coverage, but we probably won't end up shaming you for torching capital because you were thoughtful about avoiding these costs and getting good people who've done it in these jurisdictions to sort it out for you. What a logical thing to do. And Maddie, I haven't forgotten your brilliant ad for MMTS last week either. If you go insane, you can be exempt from expenditure. It was very funny the way you worded that. Well, I have to read out this brilliant text from Shannon himself. He's one up to you here, mate. Shannon says, you would have to be crazy in brackets, and therefore eligible for an exemption under Regulation 102 if you're not using MMTS.
Is that like a catch-22?
It is.
Yeah.
He's kind of promoting you to not use them because then you're exempt. But I don't know if that'll hold up in court or not. But anyway, I agree, Shannon. You'd have to be crazy.
Yeah, because it's no point if they offered their own in-house counselling because then they wouldn't be insane and then they wouldn't be able to help them apply for, so that, they're between a rock and a hard place a bit, MMTS, when you really go down. Yeah, read the book Catch-22. There you go. MMTS, Brooks Airways, thanks for your support. And, because we've got them as sponsors, I feel saner by the day.
Absolutely, mate.
Yes, love your work. Boy, let's get into mining news. Can we do a full episode just of sponsorship one day? I would love that.
I'm sure the sponsors would love that too, mate.
We're going to do that next week. Righto, JD, what's going on? No, we've got the Instagram trade winner to read out.
We do. So on Monday, we chucked out the call, send in your worst trade, and we had a couple tickets up for grabs for tonight's event. Matty, do you want to read out the winner?
Oh, the winner, right.
Or do you want to start with the runners-up?
Yeah.
Oh no, we'll go the runners-up.
Runner-up.
And we've got a notable mention that I got sent in last night. So runner-up. Are we saying names?
Yep, they went anonymous if they wanted.
Yep.
Yeah. Mark Sommelier bought Katanga Mining at $19, sold at 40 cents. Glencore lent them $250 during the GFC as a convertible at 28 cents. Bought some of the best copper assets in the world at cents in the dollar. That's why they are Glencore. Jeez, that's a
Well done,
bloody-
Mark Sumley. That is exactly what they're called.
Oh,
Runner-up 2, Stephen Edwards. Living in the UK in 2014, I bought Greatland Gold at 20 pence, worth amongst a
few speckies.
few speckies. Sold it a year later after scrapping together a house deposit and liquidating the specky portfolio at the time. Gain at today's price would have been a lot of banh mi's. Well said, Stephen.
Good mention. I'll tell you the winner, and because this one last night come in late, so it didn't get judged. So the winner of the double pass, pseudonym Billy Zane, thought I was being a smart cookie in 2020, trying to get early on the rare earth fad. Went to buy some Linus shares and typed in LCY instead of LYC. I became a proud owner of Legacy Iron Ore Limited, not Linus. To add insult to injury, LCY then went to drop 50% since I bought. Absolute numpty. But didn't LCY then go back up
A little bit.
a few months ago when Gina bought?
Yeah.
About 3 years later.
Yeah, about 3 years later. Now I've got a good one to read out. Bear with me here, Money Miners.
Well done, Billy Zane.
This got sent in last night. Right. So 5 years ago, this bloke was looking at a small cap, looked at the Neds. The Neds had good form, thought he'd chuck a bit in. So he bought 1 million shares at 3 cents, put 30 grand into it. 5 years on, it had run up to 6, 7, 8 cents. So held on. So he's up close to double and a bit. Didn't know whether to sell or not. Asked his missus, said, right, we've got this money. She's normally a pretty good gauge. And said, we've got this money, made about 30, 40 grand. Should I sell? It's your call. He had complete trust in her, put the ball in the court, but she loved to win. She says she's looking at the profit and said, let's sell it. Overall.
Nothing wrong with 40
So
grand in
we'll
the
pocket
pocket.
40 grand. So take the profit, yada, yada. Turns out those shares were Wildcat. So sold it at around
grand.
that 6, 7, 8 cents. Now they are
Probably about 750 grand at the minute.
yeah, so they're about
700.
70 cents now. They did go up to $1. So
Who needs 700 grand anyway?
that's all before it started. So because it started running a bit, and he's like, oh, may as well take the win. And yeah, so that's a
Matty, I
that's
think
a
it's
ripper.
actually Wildcat.
Wildcat. Right, love it.
That was a good one.
Good stuff. Righto.
Oh, and
Jade.
special mention to Monty the dog, who I traded ball for treat, but the treat was actually rock, and my owner kept the ball. So that was
Trav, what have you done?
pretty bad trade for Monty there.
Sure. Is that free publicity for your dog? God, this is
Check him out on Instagram.
Is he paying an invoice for that? Righto, JD, Boss Energy, the raising and acquiring.
Yeah, so we spoke about them yesterday. The rumour was they were raising about $200. They've come out raising 205 plus another 10 in an SPP. So they're buying 30% of the Alta Mesa in situ recovery ISR project in South Texas.
Uranium, for everyone that doesn't know, Boss.
That's right, uranium. So they're going to partner with Encore Energy. They're the current owners, so they'll remain 70% owners, and Boss will own 30% of that. So that's going to cost them $60 million US, which is less than half, obviously, of what they are raising today. Not to mention they had 60 Aussie roughly already, plus about 150 million Aussie in inventories. So we'll get into the use of funds later on. Alta Mesa, like their current project, Honeymoon, which is coming online pretty soon now, is a restart project, but this one's scheduled to come online in the first half of next year. It's got a capacity for £1.5 million per annum, with the optionality to scale that up over time to £2 million per annum. There was another interesting detail in this one, guys. Boss, out of their inventories, are going to lend £200,000. They've got about £1.25 million at the moment.
Lend £200,000 of uranium.
Of uranium.
Yep, not British pounds. Yep.
That's right, to Encore, because they've got sales contracts to deliver into. So that £200,000 of uranium is worth around about Aussie 25 at current prices. So they're charging 9% interest on this, and they're going to be paid back either in uranium or in cash.
Oh, there you go. So they're obviously taken themselves as a bit of a niche in situ recovery uranium play, which they were already with their one project, but they're obviously expanding on it.
Yeah, exactly. And that investment that they made into uranium inventories a while back now has, profited quite well on paper anyway at the moment. So the resource for the Alta Mesa project is about 20 million pounds. So it's quite a bit smaller than their Honeymoon project, but still it's of decent scale and a better grade. If you're looking at the all-in sustaining cost, they haven't given anything specific, but they give you a guide off a nearby project. They say that produces about 30 to 35 US dollars per pound. And just to remind the money miners, last time we looked, uranium was trading around about 80 US bucks per pound. So this project, like I said, a restart project, has produced 4.6 million pounds between 2005 and 2013.
So if you wanted more information on in situ recovery, go to Boss's announcements. It's obviously different to your next gen, which is hard rock mining at depth. These ones are these paleo channels down, and they just drill holes, pump shit through them, leach the uranium out, and suck it back up. So it's minimal disturbance, but it's a lot cheaper option, but they're a lot lower grade. So
Yeah. But still economic at lower grade.
Yeah.
You can get a bit of a feel for it in today's presentation, and there's plenty of good sources on YouTube if you want to dive deep.
That's how it was started in Kazakhstan. Didn't it? That's where a lot of the in situ uranium leaching started.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's get into our thoughts. We've shared the details around the transaction, but Trav, you had a few to get us started.
Yeah, I thought the first one, it's interesting how it's structured at the JV rather than an equity investment at the corporate level. I don't have any context on what discussions have been had between the two parties, but I thought it's interesting, right? It's taking a position at that one asset. Obviously, there's another asset as part of Encore. I don't know if it's sort of the preamble to a potential merger down the track. But one thing that it does, right, is Boss has a team here in Australia, and that's like an operating team in Australia. But this here, it gets some exposure to an asset over there, which already has an operating team over there running the asset, but they get the economic exposure at the asset level in the sort of equity-like form where they don't have to stump up the operating capability, which is pretty cool.
And on the use of funds, that was also interesting. So we mentioned about 215 million is what they're raising, but we'll show on the screen what the breakdown is.
Yeah, 45 million they're penned. Of that 215 for Honeymoon growth.
Isn't it funny when you look at those all-in sustaining costs, the US 30 to 35, if uranium keeps tearing and the actual, price becomes significant multiples of that all-in sustaining costs, you can tell when they're going to make some money if it keeps going.
Keep in mind, a lot of producers or near-term producers, they contract a good chunk of their supply at these sort of predetermined prices, so they don't necessarily experience the full benefit of that.
Not on the spot.
But
and all-in sustaining doesn't take into account the capex you gotta stump up as well.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's the spot movement explains a lot of the equity price dynamics.
Well,
at the moment.
It's I suppose the equivalent if you look at a gold miner with all-in sustaining of $1,000 an ounce and they're selling at $3,000. That's what if uranium starts getting into the 90s. That's going to be pretty similar to what they're doing here.
Yeah.
And the capex for these will be a lot smaller because of their in situ recovery operations.
Yeah.
So it's just all
definitely benefit.
All done from the surface.
Yeah. So that 45 million of the use of funds that's penned for Honeymoon growth. Keep in mind, Honeymoon's going through ramp up at the moment. Every bit of messaging out of Boss from the latest wording is fully funded. And the details of this growth, they kind of pitch it towards expansion studies and the likes. And the cynic in me is always like, but if you're allocating capital that you're getting in the door during ramp up, it's a bit of a working capital buffer for existing things if they take longer and etc. All the rest. That's the cynic in me that always thinks that when I see any capital raising around ramp up for anyone. And normally I'd be critical and I'd call it a bit sneaky to slip this one in there, but honestly, in this occasion, I think it's good on them. Like we've talked about the dynamics right now where Boss, literally trading at multiples of NAV. You rarely see that in mining assets. I'm sure they're looking at their own valuation and capitalising on the relatively less dilutive capital raising potential as part of taking the money like now, as opposed to sort of taking it at a different point in time where it'd be more dilutive. The challenge for them is going to be finding accretive things to allocate that capital towards, but this deal's pretty interesting. It's ISR. They've got an in-country operating partner, like I said.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. When we first heard about this deal, we were just hearing that they're raising capital before we heard that they were actually going to acquire something. And the first thoughts were, hey, look at where they're trading. That's actually pretty smart from management. Biff up the balance sheet, try and backfill. Obviously, how you allocate that capital is a decision to be made. But take the cash on, like you said, Matty, when you don't need it.
Make yourself bulletproof, but raising a bit of equity when you're trading at 2.5 times NAV or whatever their latest multiple is. Sure.
Yeah, way better result than raising at half the price in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
For shareholders.
And one last comment was just there's a lot of rhetoric that the US has strong imperative at the moment to improve its energy security, increase its production of domestic uranium, and this asset is hence more likely to be eligible for the suite of low-cost capital as a result of that policy agenda. And now that Boss has a joint venture stake in this asset, they can be the beneficiary of some of that.
Very good. JD, what's happening on the big end of town, Cobber?
Let's have a quick chat about Samandu. So, like we said, Rio gave a project update, which is relatively unusual for a company of their scale for a individual project. So Samandu is obviously their Guinean iron ore growth project. It's got a very colourful history, as we've touched on in the past. So they've converted 1.5 billion tonnes into reserve. The project has a 26-year mine life, grade of 65.3% iron, so very high grade product.
About as good as it gets on that scale. Very standout.
And the capex has also jumped. So their share is now looking at US $6.2 billion. If you look at the project total across the 4 blocks, how they divide it up, we're looking at US $23 billion or more. So just huge scale. They're building over 600 kilometres of rail. They're building port facilities as well. The facilities are going to have capacity for 120 million tonnes per annum.
That is fucking huge.
It's massive. It's around about 6% of the world's supply of iron ore. So it's just a seriously big number.
But isn't that wasn't Rio and that doing like 200 million tonne out of the Pilbara or so, I don't know that is a freaking huge number.
Rio, from memory, want to hit this year at the high end 335 million tonnes
out of the Pilbara.
So
that's a third of the Pilbara out of one big operation.
And higher grade, so the cash flows would be better if the operating costs are similar. We haven't got much guidance on what operating costs are going to be at the minute. But yeah, obviously that 120 million tonnes per annum is not just theirs. So it's broken up across 4 blocks. Rio are in a consortium that has ownership over 2 of them. They own 53% of that consortium, and then that consortium in turn has to share it with the 15% government free carried interests.
Who else is in the consortium, JD?
So their partner there is like a group that's predominantly made up of Chinalco, the Chinese groups, and then there's some other parties that tie in with that other 47% ownership. So if you do the rough math, it looks like they'll get 27 million tonnes per annum purely for Rio. Rio have stated they want this producing by 2025, although they haven't yet actually made a final investment decision. So that's not far away at all. But they would in turn ramp this up over 30 months. So
that 120 million, so their share is effectively 60 million. I think you said before, Rio's share.
Their consortium is 60 million. Rio's actual share would be closer to about 27.
Oh, because they're 53%
owners of that. Yep.
Yeah.
And then there is also a 15% free carried interest on the blocks that they have.
Yeah.
So
so when you break it down to what Rio's actually getting, it's not as the headline is misleading.
Yeah, exactly. So
to someone like me that doesn't read the whole thing.
There are a couple other details that stood out reading through Rio's report, kind of moving away from Samandu. They're looking to spend $10 billion per annum over the next 3 years in CapEx. $3 billion of that is in growth CapEx. So Samandu is the biggest project they've got, but Oyu Tolgoi and Kennecott Underground are also going to be the next biggest projects that a fair bit of capital is going to be sunk into. So you can see they're focused iron ore and copper.
Yeah. Oh, right. Aluminium, JD.
Aluminium, Glencore staying on the big end of town. So there was a deal that they announced back in April and it's finally closed. So 2 deals, both related. They're buying 45% of a Brazilian bauxite producer, Mineração Rio do Norte, as well as 30% of Alunorte in Brazil. So Alunorte is the world's largest alumina refinery outside of China. And we'll show a photo of this thing. It's just ginormous. It's got production capacity for 6.3 million tonnes per annum. So Most of the bauxite that is mined from Rio do Norte is what's used in the Alunorte plant. Some of the alumina is exported, some goes to a nearby plant to be converted into aluminium. Glencore won't be operating either of these. Like I said, there's sort of minority interests in them. But there were some interesting comments coming from the head of alumina and aluminium at Glencore. The acquisition of the equity stakes in Alunorte and MRN provides Glencore with exposure to lower quartile carbon and alumina and bauxite. So you normally hear these heads of businesses stress the lower quartile costs. But I think there's a lot of similarities with this one and with Rio developing Simandou. The quality of the projects really, really matters, not purely from a cost perspective, but from an emissions perspective as well.
Okay, yeah.
So the trend sort of lends itself to better grade, lower impurity, less metallurgically complex, lower tonnage operations that ultimately have less emissions attached to it.
Aluminium's probably the one easy thing to point to in metals markets where you actually do have higher price for higher CO2 aluminium versus lower CO2 where
we'd seen
parties
S32
like Apple are happy to pay a premium.
Yeah, we'd seen S32 point to that. And I think the trend is reflective. I think it was no accident that BHP sold the coking coal assets that they did as well and kept the ones that they did as well. That was a matter of quality of project.
Does it say much about what Glencore's thinking about aluminium? Like, is there any take on that?
Sort of hard to pry into there. I'm still switched on to see if they actually split up the business within the 24 months that they said they will do on the back of the deal with Teck. And
so splitting out a separate aluminium division?
No, well, splitting out a metals business and a more energy and coal related business. So we'll see how they go about that. But they did put themselves on a timeline over the next 2 years to do that. So we'll kind of see.
Very interesting. Righto, boys, strap yourself in.
Mate, I'll take a drink and sit back and relax.
Just to sit back and enjoy the show. Newmont Tanami. So we're going to, I'm looking forward to the history of this one. This is, once I've delved into it, and I will say there was a university thesis online that mapped out the whole history of the transactions and everything. So credit to that bloke, because that bloody helped me a lot. So he was a uni one, so I hope he fucking knows what he's talking about.
And there aren't many gold mines in Northern Territory, are there, Matty? So it's pretty interesting from a few perspectives.
No, not many that you hear about. There was that. Was it Brock's Creek and all that? Crocodile Gold used to have.
Mount Todd was up there.
Well, this one's, I'll show the map here. And so you'll hear about the granites. Like, this is good. Newmont's Tanami operation. It's also called the granites. That's what it was sort of historically called. It's on the Western Australian edge of Northern Territory. You can see it here, up from Alice Springs, Tennant Creek. So nice and warm. Always been known as a pretty hot joint to work, even in the early days when they weren't as deep. And now they're down to like 1,600 metres. So she's pretty warm. Imagine the wet season repping through that. So it's actually one of Newmont's what they class tier 1 assets. You can see the graph here. It's on the bottom end of it. So, for instance, you don't see, as I mentioned the other day, you don't see Telfer on there because it hasn't got the mine life. So to be a tier 1, it has to produce over 500,000 ounces of gold per year. Has to have a lower half of the industry curve all-in sustaining costs. Has to have mine life over 10 years. That's why Telfer doesn't classify. Has to be in ALB rating jurisdiction. So, 500,000 ounces a year. So we never really talk about many gold mines in Australia, underground ones, that produce 500,000 ounces at a head grade of around 6 grams per tonne. So coming from an underground that's 1,600 metres deep. So they are forecasting for FY23 420 to 460,000 ounces. So, look, when you're talking that amount of ounces at that grade, think of the other big gold mines in Australia that we do talk about. Cadia. So Cadia produced 596,000 ounces, but that was at 0.8 grams per tonne. They do produce. They also produce 98,000 tonnes of copper at 0.4. So they've got the big block and panel caves. Yeah, like Boddington produced 780,000 ounces there and 45,000 tonnes of copper. So Tanami is gold only, and that is a reserve grade of 0.65 grams per tonne for Boddington. So this 6 gram ore body underground producing 500,000 ounces, one of the more impressive underground gold mines in Australia. I'd say it's probably the best underground deposit in Australia. The only one that sort of comes to mind in recent times that was producing that much was Fosterville.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was owned by Kirkland Lake, now owned by Agnico Eagle. So in their glory days was, so 2019, they produced 619,000 ounces at 39 grams per tonne.
Imagine
I was
the
going to say
margin
they would
on
have
that.
been. They would have been moving a whole lot less.
Isn't that
less
unbelievable?
dirt.
So, but that's significantly dropped since then. They produce 338,000 ounces at still 20 grams in FY22, but that's dropping down to 210 by FY25. So they're sort of, but the Tanami operation just sort of one of those ones that appears to just keep going to the centre of the earth with this new Auron discovery. Probably similar to Gwalia when you look. Gwalia sort of keeps going at depth, but that's got a reserve grade of 5 grams, but it dips at sort of 40 degrees and they're only producing 120 to 130,000 ounces. So Tanami to me is one of the, in terms of underground gold operations in Australia, is a massive standout on what that ore body is, and it is expanding. We'll go into that later.
How do they get so much dirt out of the ground underground there? Is it a pretty impressive feat to?
Well, you've got the grade. Yeah. There's obviously, I think they've got about 20 trucks running.
Yeah.
But they're putting in a massive shaft that I'll go into, the Tanami Expansion 2 project.
Skipping ahead, Trev.
So that's going to really...
It's all to come.
All right.
Remember, and that's a big constraint in the operation. It's in Northern Territory, so you get a wetsuit. It is refrigerated, but refrigeration doesn't really work in humid conditions, same as like your evaporative aircon.
Yeah.
So ventilation is the big constraint. You've got 20-odd trucks running, taking dirt out of the hole. I don't know if they've got old shaft infrastructure or not, but it's, big long hauls. All your trucks generate a lot of heat, so you've got a limited amount of work you can do down there based on the ventilation constraints. This is why this expansion project is going to open up so many doors for the operation, because like you see the ounces declining, that's always a reflection of once you get deeper, it's a lot harder to get it all out of the hole. So what does it look like? Let's say what the ore body looks like. It's all the historical stuff. I'll put up a picture here coming out of the Cali ore body. That was sort of the main underground feed. But then in 2007, they found the Auron ore body. So that's the one that I said looks like it will probably continue to the centre of the earth. Who knows? And then they also found the Federation limb in 2013 and the Liberator in 2016. So the way it's described, it looks like a trident. So I'll put up a trident here. Look at that. So the guts of it, where 80% of the dirt comes out of now, is the Auron, and then those two limbs either side are Federation and Liberator. So it's sort of in 3D. So I'll put the scheme up here. So you've got...
The Liberator is a sick name.
The Liberator. So you've got like Auron, and then on the southern side you've got twisted around, you've got Federation and Liberator. So it's like a little 3-dimensional trident, but 80% actually comes out of that Auron ore body. So,
gotcha. So Matty, what's the deposit style at Tanami?
Yeah, well it's big. It's bulk mining, so but it's not like a big sedimentary hosted gold distributed everywhere. I'll bring up a sheet here. It looks like all these just shitloads of real narrow, nuggety quartz veins. So you look at these, all just a shitload of them together, and they've just got extremely high grade amounts of gold in these thin quartz veins, but it's that high grade they just mine it all as one and end up getting bloody 6 grams out. So it's I think sounds like they'd be too close and too difficult at that depth to do like narrow vein, just bloody rip it all out in one go. And so it's not like it's a shitload of narrow veins all together and just very, very nuggety in the actual grade. Now, the history. This is, I love history. I don't love history. I love mining history. And what was the history, boys, to get this to be a Newmont asset?
All right, let's start from the very beginning.
I'm the man to ask. You know me. So, look, it was Tanami, the granites, however you want to call it, it was first established in 1908. The mill was first commissioned in 1986.
By which company owned it then?
North Flinders Mines.
Gotcha.
So 1991, that's when they sort of 4.3 million ounce resource was discovered, which was the Cali ore body. So that's the big humdinger. So that's what underpinned what this mine was.
But
so,
it had already been running for 5 years at that point.
Yeah. I think it started with some like open pits. I think Vera, something like that. So this North Flinders Mines was founded by this Adelaide businessman, Jeff Stewart, in 1969. He founded this business. So keep 1969 in your head. Now, this Flinders Mines first got taken over by Mooney Oil Company in 1985, they were a major shareholder in North Flinders Mines, and it was a corporate vehicle called Paringa, and they were British. And then
Paringa.
I was going to say that's right.
Familiar name.
That's a real throwback.
Yeah. So and then Australian Gaslighting Company, also known as AGL. They then took over this Mooney Oil for their petroleum assets, which meant that effectively AGL had control of the granites. But AGL didn't really want a gold project, though it wasn't a core asset. And then North Flinders Mines didn't want to be owned by AGL. And so AGL sold this Paringa to the Hartigan Group, owned by Sydney businessman Pat Burke. And there started all this argy-bargy between this Hartigan Group and North Flinders founder Jeff Stewart, the Adelaide businessman that's the founder. And it resulted in Stewart losing, and Hartigan's Pat Burke actually became the chairman, and Jeff Stewart still remained on the board of North Flinders. And then gold price shit itself in 1988. And so this Hartigan group of companies, this Pat Burke, they got suspended from trading in 1989 because they couldn't pay AGL the remainder of what was required for the purchase of the granites. So AGL then retained its stake in Paringa, which was effectively the granites, but still wanted to sell it. So 1991, 20 companies were interested in buying this because they wanted the granites, and the successful bidder was Australian Consolidated Minerals, ACM, via its subsidiary ACM Gold. Not ACM the contractor, this was ACM. So they had 49.6% of North Flinders, which is, when I say North Flinders, just think the granites. And their share price started to tank, and they got touted as a bit of a takeover target. And then you got Hugh Morgan of Western Mining, WMC, and Robert Champion de Crepney of Normandy, Poseidon, wanting to take them over. So Normandy were the ones that merged with Poseidon Nickel after the Poseidon nickel boom. So because Western Mining wanted ACM's stake in Mount Keith for the nickel, and then Normandy Poseidon wanted exposure to base metals through ACM's stake in the Scuddles project, which was Golden Grove. And then they also wanted the stake in North Flinders, the granites. So WMC and Normandy then gained control of ACM, and Robert de Crepney became the chairman. So this Jeff Stewart, the founder of North Flinders, he was the deputy chairman of North Flinders under de Crepney. So 1992, you then had ACM Gold merge with Normandy subsidiary Poseidon Gold. So that's where POS Gold came about. Wow. That was the merger of ACM Gold and Normandy Poseidon. Poseidon Gold. That's POS Gold. So then North Flinders mining, but they became increasingly important asset to Normandy. Like so, in 1993, granites was effectively 20% of POS Gold's profit. So POS Gold is part of the Normandy. Normandy was the parent company. POS Gold was one of the subsidiaries.
And that coincides with what you said earlier. Around that time is when the resource got much bigger to whatever the number, 4.3 million ounces.
Yeah. And so now the reports are that this Stewart, North Flinders founder, and Robert de Crepney didn't get along. So, and at the 1993 North Flinders AGM, so remember de Crepney's the chairman, Stewart is the deputy chairman. Pretty sure I've got all this right. Stewart and the other co-founder weren't re-elected as directors of the company that they founded. So that's where Normandy effectively took control of Tanami. So then Normandy tried to do a mass merger of all the companies they controlled. So you got the Normandy, the parent group. You got POSGold. You've got Gold Mines of Kalgoorlie, which had the large share in the super pit in Kalgoorlie, and then you got North Flinders. So it initially failed, even though the whole board recommended it, mostly on the back of a big media campaign by this Jeff Stewart. So they tried to recommence the merger in 1996.
Yep.
So you had the merger of Normandy, POSGold, and Gold Mines of Kalgoorlie. That was approved, but then they
A three-way merger.
Yeah. So but then they launched a separate takeover to try and get North Flinders, which is the granites, but they only reached 72.5%.
Menage a trois.
So there was plenty in the media about it. So you got North Flinders writing to shareholders, telling them to sell their shares on behalf of De Crespigny. But then you've got Jeff Stewart. He's in the West Australian paper saying those shareholders who sold are absolute losers. North Flinders Mines is still the jewel in the Normandy crown. So you've got this massive argy-bargy, and this went on for more years. Remember, he's founded this in 1969.
Yeah.
We're up to 1998.
Yeah.
So by 98, Normandy gained 78% of North Flinders. But you also had Normandy take over Great Central Mines in 1999, which gave them Bronzewing, Walloona and Jundee. So you'll be hearing a lot of assets here that are, or
Very
some
familiar.
assets that are familiar and now Newmont assets. Yep. So now by 2001, North Flinders' share price so he's still hanging on to this share in the granites. And so the North Flinders price had actually doubled and sitting at about $9. And in 2001, you had Newmont and Anglo Gold start competing for control of Normandy. So Normandy ended up recommending Newmont's bid for the part of a large merger because they were also merging with Franco-Nevada. So that was a $4.4 billion deal. And that was back in 2001. So this Robert Champion de Crespigny ended up with $160 in cash and shares from the sale back in early 2000. So that's where he got his coin. But remember, you've still got this Normandy North Flinders mine, because I think North Flinders mine was renamed to Normandy North Flinders once they took control. They're still sitting there as a holder, a smaller holder in the granites. So you've got to get Jeff Stewart on side. Newmont had to offer a scrip deal worth $18.50 a share equivalent, pretty much double to what the price was in 2001, because they wanted to mop up that minority stake. So because they were at 76, I think. One article said 76. They still had that 24% share of the granites. So Jeff Stewart ended up pocketing $10 million, and when Newmont finally took over the NFM subsidiary. So North Flinders were then delisted in 2003. So he hung on for a long, long time and resisted all these offers and finally got the payday in 2002, 2003. So
Wow.
there was, and Newmont has had full ownership of the asset ever since. So
Well done, Matty.
what a legend. I like that guy. He just resisted every temptation and finally got the payday. So it sounded like he got paid 4 times as much as he could have if he
Accepted
sold to Normandy early on. And he hung on. So
Good on him, mate.
Good on you, mate. So back to Newmont's Tanami project today. So as I said, biggest constraint, depth and ventilation. So they're in the final stages of what they call the Tanami Expansion 2 project, $1.2 to $1.3 billion expansion project. So they've put in a 1,460 metre shaft that'll be used for material hoisting. So they'll also hoist personnel in and out of work, and it doubles up as a fresh air intake as well. So, this shaft was interestingly done in 2 stages. So it was done by a raise bore. So they jammed a big full-length pilot hole down. Sounds like they then broke into the shaft about halfway up. They pulled the raise bore head up through the top half, so to about 5.5 to 6 metres. They then started once they done that, they then started raise boring the bottom half, and then in tandem concrete lining the top half. And sounds like they left a pillar in the middle. So then, because you obviously can't set up a raise bore under a big fucking open hole, so they left a pillar, raise bored that, then raise bored the bottom half, and then fired had the access, went in and fired the remainder out with a long hole rise. So doing it that way, because I don't think, well, geez, Ruck might be able to help me here, but I don't think you can pull a bloody 1,460 metre raise bore through in one go. That's a shitload of strain on the rods, and if you snap it, you're pretty well fucked. So that's going to be a full 5.5 metre diameter, concrete lined shaft. Once again, it sounds like it's nearly finished. So that means instead of these trucks taking shit all the way to the surface or wherever they take it, you just chuck her in there, underground crushing station, straight up the shaft. So you take a lot of trucks out of the circuit, which will improve the heat. Your TKMs are it's just quick to get the dirt there. So from that, they're increasing their capacity up to, I think it's 3.3 million tonne per annum, and that's going to add around 150 to 200,000 ounces per annum to the project. So that's going to get them back up to above 600,000 ounces per annum, and a lot better for ventilation, heat, and the workforce. I'm sure the workforce will be bloody cheering about that, just to take a bit of diesel heat out of the operation. So
Totally.
The stope extraction there, it's pretty bloody awesome. That ore on ore body is mined as like a checkerboard. So you got these 30 by 30 metre stopes, 30 wide, 30 long sort of thing, in a big bloody checkerboard, because it's one thing. So they pretty much go into the centre of it and just start mining their way out. But like one stope, this 30 by 30, like when I say a lift, I think they're about 40 metre sub-levels. I'll have to confirm that. But that 30 by 30 over the 40 metres is about 100,000 tonne. So that 100,000 tonne, that's what you call a lift. That's one lift. So that for that 100,000 tonne, that's nearly 20,000 ounces just in that one section. And then you've got a bit, probably 30 or 40 of them on one level. Jesus. And then they do some like a double lift, so they'll mine it all at once. And I think they used to do a lot of triple lifts. So that means like a triple lift, one stope, just a big rock factory is like nearly 60,000 ounces at 6 grams per tonne. So like
take a while bogging and trucking that out.
Yeah, but just how easy is it compared to narrow vein? And so that's why the ore body is just such a bloody standout. So, and they do paste fill. You'll love a bit of paste fill.
You do love
obviously
paste.
Gives them full extraction. You pretty much have to paste fill this because the reason this isn't like a cave or anything. It's got a real steep plunge, so it's not really amenable to a caving operation. That's why it's a stoping operation. But they co-fill it with waste. So because these big footprints, I think, and they sequence it so it's like they always maintain access to be able to co-fill it with waste. So you pour the waste in as you paste fill, and you pour the waste into the centre of the stope. You'd have to leave a plug at the bottom of all paste, but you just pour the waste in the centre. The paste goes up evenly around the edge of it so that all the walls are paste, but then the rock's in the middle. So when you mine the successor stopes around it, all the rock doesn't fall in, it's just paste. So that means it saves a lot of, nothing worse than hauling bloody decline waste that is worth fucking nothing and using diesel all the way 1,600 metres to the surface. So I think they work very hard on making sure that as much rock fill goes into the stopes as humanly possible.
Super clever.
So, yeah.
Great work, Matty.
There you go.
Well done. That's Tanami in a nutshell.
That's Tanami in a nutshell. Sorry, if I got anything wrong, Tanami people, but thank God I bloody found that thesis. I hope that bloody uni student's right.
Gents, we've got a live show to prepare for.
Oh, yeah, shit, yeah. Can't bloody wait, mate. Can you two make sure I fucking eat something tonight? Make sure, jam the food into me.
It'll be my mission, mate.
Good work. Just keep, because I get real excited.
Get you.
And I make a clown of myself. So, yes. Righto. Thanks to all the bloody partners, and we're going to see a shitload of them tonight.
That's it. We've got Investor Hub, DSI, Underground, Terra Capital, McMahon Mining Title Services, Future Proof Consulting, Anytime Exploration Services, KCA Site Services, Brooks Airways, and last but not least, K-Drill.
I feel like K-Drill it's good having them at the end because you can put a bit of K-Drill. K-Drill. Good finish.
All right.
Righto, Money Miners. See you tonight.
Hooteroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.